It started with a sound, a low, almost imperceptible hum that vibrated through the floorboards of David's mountain cabin. He had rented the place for a quiet, reflective weekend. His first time away from work in over a year. The air was crisp, the scent of pine needles strong, and the full moon hung over the forest like an unblinking eye. David, a mid-level marketing executive in his late 40s, wasn't easily spooked. He welcomed solitude. But this night felt wrong, like the air itself was holding its breath. Earlier that day, the elderly woman who handed him the keys at the rental office had said something peculiar. "Make sure you're indoors before moonrise," she muttered, her eyes never quite meeting his. David laughed it off, thought maybe she was senile or just overly cautious. But now, with the hum growing louder and the moonlight casting long silver shadows into the room, he found himself clutching his wineglass like a weapon. It wasn't just quiet, it was expectant, like something was waiting. The hum stopped. Silence returned so suddenly it made his ears ring. Then came the knock, a single, sharp knock at the front door. David froze. The cabin was in the middle of nowhere. Nearest neighbor was 5 miles downhill. He stepped toward the window, pulled the curtain back just a crack, and peered into the night. No one, just the woods and the moon. But then the knock came again, louder. This time, it was accompanied by the creak of the porch. David's throat tightened. He turned off the lights and moved silently toward the door. Holding his breath, he looked through the peephole and saw nothing. But the porch creaked again, as if someone heavy had just stepped off it. And there, just before the shadows swallowed it, he caught sight of something pale, like a hand dragging across the wooden rail. David opened the door slowly. Moonlight spilled in, pale and ghostly. The porch was empty. He stepped outside, scanning the trees, his breath fogging in the chill. Still nothing. But something had changed. The hum was back, distant now, like it was inside the earth itself. Then he noticed the tracks. Bare footprints leading from the woods right up to his front steps. They were large and barefoot, and they disappeared just before the door, like the person had vanished into thin air. He followed the trail with his eyes until they dissolved into darkness. "Hello?" he called out, instantly regretting it. His voice sounded too small, too fragile. Then he heard a voice, his own voice, echoing back from the trees. "Hello?" it mimicked, perfectly. The hairs on his arms stood straight up. Something was out there, and it could copy him. He slammed the door shut and locked it, heart hammering. He backed away until he bumped into the fireplace. The mimicry hadn't stopped. It was calling his name now, softly. "David! David!" His mind raced. Who or what was doing this? He'd heard of wolves, maybe bears in the area, but nothing could imitate a human voice that flawlessly. Then came the scratching. Slow, deliberate scratches along the wooden exterior of the cabin. He followed the sound to the kitchen window and peeked out. For a moment, he saw nothing but his reflection. But then, his reflection smiled. David didn't. And that smile, it wasn't his. It was wider, hungrier. He stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The sound of it crashing to the floor was drowned out by something else. The door clicking open, not the one he locked, the back door. David rushed toward it but stopped short. A figure stood there, motionless, outlined by moonlight. It looked exactly like him. Same face, Same jacket, same confusion in its eyes. "Who are you?" David whispered. The thing tilted its head, as if mimicking his curiosity. "Who are you?" it asked, not shouted, not hissed. It asked with calm interest. David shut the door and pushed the dining table in front of it, then sprinted for his phone. No service. Of course. Why would there be? He could hear footsteps moving inside now. 2 sets. He grabbed the fire poker and crouched in the living room, eyes darting. The windows glowed silver, and he realized with horror that the full moon had risen to its zenith. The hum was now a deep vibration in his bones. And then, laughter, childlike giggles echoing from the attic. He hadn't even been in the attic. David climbed the ladder, poker in hand. The attic hatch creaked open. Dust swirled in the beam of his flashlight. At first, he saw nothing but old furniture covered in sheets. Then he saw it. A mirror, ancient, covered in vines. Inside the attic, and reflected in it, 3 Davids, all standing still, smiling. He stumbled back, nearly falling off the ladder. When he looked again, the mirror was gone. Or had it never been there? The attic was empty. He came down, shaking, whispering to himself, trying to rationalize. He checked every window, every lock, but he forgot one thing: the moonlight. It moved across the floor slowly, like a creeping shadow, and wherever it touched, reflections shimmered. First on the TV screen, then on the oven door, then on the glass of a picture frame, and in each surface, another version of himself stared back, smiling, always smiling. David tried to cover the mirrors, the glass, the screens, but they multiplied. The cabin wasn't reflecting him anymore. It was pulling them through. The floorboards groaned as footsteps multiplied, laughter mixed with humming, and then whispers. He's ours now. The last thing he saw before the lights blew out was a dozen versions of his own face surrounding him in the living room, stepping from walls, from light, from moon-touched glass. He screamed. The echo answered. The storm that followed the full moon washed over the mountain violently. For hours, wind howled and trees cracked, but no one heard screams. When the local ranger hiked up to the cabin 3 days later, he found the door slightly ajar. Everything inside was still. The fire had long gone out. David's car was parked outside, keys still in the ignition, but there was no sign of David, except for the mirrors, all covered in condensation except one, the bathroom mirror. There, written in the fog, were 4 words. "I'm still in here." The ranger wiped the mirror. His own reflection stared back at him, expressionless. Then it blinked, and the ranger didn't. A week later, the cabin was removed from the rental listings. Too many questions, too many disappearances. The woman who had given David the key refused to speak about it. She only muttered, "He looked too long. The moon showed him too much." Some say the cabin is still up there, waiting, and when the full moon returns, it opens its many eyes, every mirror, every screen, every shimmer of glass. If you stare too long into any of them, you might not be the one who blinks next. No one picks up hitchhikers anymore, especially not on desolate mountain roads bathed in eerie silver moonlight. And yet, that's exactly what Tom Halvers did. It was the first weekend of October, and he was driving up to his uncle's cabin in the Adirondacks, a solitary retreat to escape the chaos of life after his recent divorce. The air was sharp, the trees bleeding autumn colours, and the moon hung above like a watching eye. He hadn't seen another car in miles when he spotted a man standing by the roadside, wearing a long coat and a hat that shadowed his face. Against his better judgment, something compelled Tom to pull over. The man didn't speak at first. He climbed in, nodded once, and shut the door without a word. Only after a few minutes of silence did he say, "The woods are loud tonight, aren't they?" His voice was hoarse and low. Tom glanced at him, trying to make out his face, but the man kept to the shadows. "You heading far?" Tom asked, trying to sound casual. "Not far," the man replied. "Not far at all. Just up near where the trees stop whispering." Tom forced a laugh, but the chill that ran through him wasn't from the cold. By the time they reached the old logging road that led to the cabin, the sky had darkened fully and the moon seemed even brighter. The man motioned for Tom to stop. "Here," he said. No sign of a house or path, just thick forest and the echo of wind. "You sure?" Tom asked, but the man was already out, walking toward the trees. Without another glance, he vanished into the woods. Tom sat there, engine idling, questioning what he'd just done, but he shook it off and continued up the path. When he reached the cabin, everything was just as he remembered. Dusty, cold, but familiar. He started a fire, heated some soup, and tried to forget the strange encounter. But when he stepped out for air, he saw them. Bare footprints in the dirt, fresh, leading around the back of the cabin. His stomach tightened. He hadn't walked back there, and there were too many prints for one person. Sleep was impossible that night. Every creak of the wooden walls felt too deliberate. Every gust of wind too human. Around midnight, Tom heard it, howling, not distant, not faint, close. He grabbed the flashlight and peeked out the window, just trees and darkness. And the moon, now directly above, glaring down like a spotlight. He paced for a while before deciding to check the back of the cabin. His heart thudded in his ears as he crept outside. The cold bit through his sweater. The flashlight flickered once, then steadied. Around the back he found deep claw marks on the side of the cabin, 3 jagged gashes, like an animal had tried to get in. He turned to run, but something moved at the tree line. Tall, unnaturally tall, watching. Tom slammed the door shut and locked it. He backed into the cabin until his legs hit the couch. His breathing was fast, shallow. His phone had no signal, no internet. Just him and the whispers of the forest. Then came the knock. A soft, deliberate tap at the window. He turned, heart stalling. Nothing. Another tap. This time at the front door. "Tom!" A voice called out. Soft, familiar. "It's me, Clara." His ex-wife. But it couldn't be. Clara was in Chicago. "Open the door," she pleaded. "Please, it's cold." He looked through the peephole. No one. Just fog and moonlight. Then a shadow moved across it. Not Clara. Something else. Something mimicking her voice. Just when Tom thought that he'd lose his mind, there was a knock again, but this time sharp, firm, almost like a warning. He opened the door a crack. The man from the road stood there, face pale in the moonlight. "You let them smell you," he said simply. "Now they want in." Tom pulled him inside and bolted the door. "What are they?" he whispered. The man took off his coat, revealing scratches across his arms. "Moon's full. They come out to hunt, not animals, not men, something between." He opened a pouch and tossed a line of white powder across the threshold. "Don't cross this line," he warned. The rest of the night was a blur of howls and scratching. Something tried the windows, the doors, even the chimney. The man, he said his name was Elias, stood guard with an old revolver and a rusted dagger. Tom asked no questions. He just followed instructions. But when morning finally broke and the sun touched the treetops, the forest went quiet. Tom stepped outside. The woods looked unchanged, peaceful. Elias was gone. No sign of him, no footprints. Only the powder line remained, untouched. Back in the cabin, Tom found his own phone, smashed. Something had been inside before Elias arrived. Weeks passed. Tom didn't speak of it to anyone, but he never returned to the cabin. Every full moon, he stayed indoors, lights off, doors locked. Once, he thought he saw Elias across the street, just watching, then gone. Another night, he swore he heard Clara's voice outside his apartment window. He started researching old folklore, Adirondack legends, tales of skinwalkers, moon spirits, and mimic beasts that called from the woods when the moon was whole. One thing was always the same. They only come if invited. Tom remembered pulling over, letting someone in. Now, every full moon, he listens. Sometimes it's howling, sometimes it's voices, but he knows one thing for certain. He should have never stopped that night. 2 months later, the nightmares returned, more vivid, more tangible. He woke up with dirt under his fingernails. One morning, muddy footprints led from his front door to his bed, though his door had remained locked. It was like something was testing the limits of his reality, trying to blend itself with his life. And then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. No stamp, no name, just 4 words written in scratchy ink. The forest remembers you. He dropped it like it burned. His heart was racing, sweat beading on his brow. He didn't know what to make of it, but one thing was clear. Whatever he encountered that night, it had not been bound to the woods. It had followed him home. Strange noises started emanating from beneath the floorboards. At night, he could hear faint breathing, shifting, whispers that almost sounded like his own voice repeating back his thoughts. One night, when the fear became unbearable, he pried open the hatch to the crawl space with a crowbar. What he found paralyzed him. Scraped into the beams were carvings, hundreds of them, spirals, eyes, claws, names, his name, and beneath it, invited. The smell was awful, like old meat and wet earth, and wedged into a corner was a coat, the same long coat the man wore, but no man, just the coat, and fresh claw marks on the walls. When the next full moon arrived, Tom didn't bother locking the door. He sat in his living room, lights off, waiting. The air turned cold. The silence thickened. Then the whispers returned, louder than ever, coming from the walls, the windows, inside his mind. He wasn't alone. He hadn't been alone in months. From the shadows near the doorway, something stepped forward. Not Elias, not human. Its face shimmered like shifting water. Sometimes Tom's, sometimes Clara's, sometimes the stranger's. "You opened the way," it said with a smile that split too wide. "Now stay with us." Tom didn't scream. He just closed his eyes and whispered, "I never should have stopped." "You're not seriously going, are you?" That was the last thing my sister said before I turned off the phone. I don't blame her. The idea did sound crazy. An old classmate I hadn't seen in over 20 years suddenly messaging me out of the blue, inviting me to his remote countryside home for a reunion during a full moon weekend. I was never particularly close to Kevin. We were friends once, years ago, back in high school, but we drifted apart like most people do. That's what made it strange. Stranger still, he sounded oddly insistent in his message. He said there was something important I needed to hear, something about the past, and something he could only tell me in person. The drive out to Hollow Creek was long and winding, the kind of road where the trees felt like they were leaning in too closely. Kevin's place was nestled deep in the hills, far beyond any cell tower coverage. As I pulled up the gravel path, I noticed how still everything was. Not quiet, still. Even the birds seemed to have gone silent. Kevin greeted me at the door, like he'd just seen me yesterday. Same wiry frame, but there was a haggardness in his eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. "You came," he muttered, almost in disbelief. "You have no idea how important tonight is." The inside of the house was dimly lit and full of strange artifacts. Animal skulls, faded books, and a clock that ticked in irregular rhythms. He poured us both a drink and sat across from me, not saying much. When he finally spoke, it was like peeling away years of suppressed truth. "Do you remember the woods behind the school, the night we snuck out when Jared disappeared?" I blinked. "Kevin, that was just a story. Jared transferred schools. His parents moved." "No," Kevin whispered, his voice cracking. "That's what they told everyone, but it's not the truth." Kevin pulled out an old photograph. It was the three of us, standing near the edge of the forest, flashlights in hand. We looked so carefree. But I could see something now that I hadn't noticed before. Eyes, glinting behind the trees. "That night, something followed us," he said. "Something that doesn't forget. It took Jared, and it's never stopped watching." I tried to laugh it off, but the air in the room had turned heavy. Kevin wasn't joking. His hands were trembling. "And now, every 13 years, under the same full moon, it returns." We stepped outside. The moon had just crested above the hill, enormous and blood-tinged. A low howl echoed from the forest, so deep it rattled in my chest. Kevin grabbed my arm. "It's close. Is this a joke? Kevin, if this is some elaborate reunion prank..." He shook his head violently. "I'm the only one left. Everyone else who was there, gone. Accidents, disappearances. It always comes back. It wants to finish what it started. Despite every logical voice in my head screaming otherwise, I followed him into the woods. The moonlight turned everything silver, and the shadows seemed to move with a mind of their own. Kevin was muttering something under his breath, a chant, or maybe a prayer. We reached a clearing where the trees arched overhead like cathedral columns. That's when we saw it. A shape, half man, half something else, watching us from the other side. Its eyes reflected the moonlight. It smiled. God help me. It smiled. Kevin stepped forward. "Take me! Leave him!" he screamed. The thing didn't move. Instead, it pointed at me. I stumbled back, heart pounding, unable to look away. Memories I didn't know I had came flooding back. That night, the scream, the shadow that pulled Jared into the trees, and me, doing nothing. "You let it happen," the voice in my head growled. Not Kevin's, not mine, something older. "You watched." Suddenly, the creature lunged. Kevin jumped in front of me, claws slashing, and he crumpled to the ground. It didn't even look at his body. It kept coming. I ran. Branches tore at my skin, and the howls followed me like they were inside my head. I don't remember getting back to the house. I don't remember starting the car, but I remember the rearview mirror. those eyes still watching, growing smaller as I drove away. I never spoke about what happened. Kevin's place was found abandoned, no sign of him. The police called it a missing person case and moved on. I moved cities, changed jobs, got married, but tonight, the moon is full again. I can feel it watching,